Let's talk fantasy, sci-fi, biblical retellings. Good evening, guys. This is Jamie from the channel Read Brucey. I want to talk fantastical or sci-fi biblical retellings. Just recently, I finished the book Crown of Destiny by Ashton E. Dorow, and so biblical retellings are on my mind, and I've also been wanting to do a reread of Calculated, which this one, Ashton's book, is, I would consider it Christian fiction. Calculated is not really considered Christian fiction. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not really published as Christian fiction. But both of them are biblical, or in fact, they're both gender swapped biblical retellings. And so this topic has really been on my mind about how much I really love fantasy and sci-fi biblical retellings. And so I really want to talk about that for a minute. So let's first talk about Crown of Destiny by Ashton E. Dorow, this book that I just finished. This was a 5-star book. Now, this is a fantastical, gender swapped, loose retelling of the King David story. We start this story of a little shepherd girl. Sound familiar? Who's a redhead? Again, sound familiar? Who is out in the field taking care of her family flocks in a little obscure village, and she doesn't really know her worth, and she's in the village with her mother, and some soldiers start harassing her. And let me stop and say the queen has lost her way. And so the prophetic type men, the wise men, I don't remember what they were called, have told the queen that she's lost her kingdom, so she started killing or imprisoning all these men. So we have one that is in hiding, and he's in hiding close to this girl's village, and he's got a guy with him who's protecting him. And so this girl is in the village with her mom, and the soldiers start harassing her, and this guy comes to her aid. Doesn't think anything else about it. She goes on her way. She's in the fields, and he runs into her again in the woods, trying to help one of her sheep or lambs. And he realizes it's the same girl. He goes back and tells the wise man that he runs into this girl, and he describes the girl, the fact that she has red hair, and the guy goes, "Where is she? This is the new queen. Bring me to her." So, long story short, he takes the guy to her family. The family says, "Hey, you got the wrong family. This girl ain't gonna be a queen. Get out of here. You're gonna get us in trouble with the queen." All the things. And so she decides she needs to go check out the story. At the urging of one of her brothers, her other brother finds out and turns them in. The man of God gets killed. The wise man gets killed, and her and the protector guy have to run for their lives. And the story goes from there. So eventually they make their way to the village where the wise man was from, and they're living at that man's manor house, and they're in town one day or in the village one day, and Cain is the guy's name, and he gets pulled or conscripted into the army. So instead of staying there, our main FMC decides, and I can't think of her name for the life of me at the moment, decides to follow him to where the battle is happening. And that's where things go. I don't want to go any further into detail. You can only imagine. If you know the King David story, you can imagine what happens from there. Okay, we meet all of our queen. We meet our queen. We meet the queen's daughter. So if you're familiar with the Bible story of David, you'll understand what happens and where that story will go. So just an amazingly written story. And I was so impressed with this book, and it really just got me thinking about Bible retellings. And like I said, then it also made me think about another great Bible retelling I had read, and that was Calculated, and how it was so well written that I didn't even realize what I was reading until I was done, and I was like, "Oh wait, I just read a retelling of Joseph story." It just snuck up on me. And so and I think that's why I like fantastical retellings or sci-fi retellings of biblical stories, because you get that without you get the story without it's the story without it being feeling like it toes too close to the line of I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I like and also maybe I think that it reaches an audience that maybe Bible stories don't always reach, and maybe that's the thing. Okay, so what that brings to my, obviously I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't love these kind of stories. So I've just made me think about some of my favorites. And I keep thinking of ones that I missed. I have a whole set over there of another fantastical retelling of the David story. It's not gender swapped, and it's actually a middle grade series. It's called the WilderKing trilogy. The first one is called The Bark of the Bog Owl, and I don't have it over here with me, but I'll put a picture of it on the screen. So that's two fantasy retellings of the King David series that you should check out. Moving on. One of the first great biblical retellings that I know of, I mean, we could go all the way back to Pilgrim's Progress. That is allegory, but that's basically a biblical retelling of the Christian walk. Okay, but one of the earliest biblical retellings that I really know of is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I mean, come on, it retells the story of Christ. Well, it really starts with the creation. You could go to the magician's nephew and the creation of Narnia. But The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe definitely has the story of Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. Okay, so if you want to start at that being the beginning of fantastical biblical retellings. That might be where it kind of started. But it just kind of made me think, what are some of my favorites? So let's kind of talk through them. I seem to know quite a few Esther retellings. Esther is one that gets done a whole lot. And so let's talk about, we'll start with this one because it's on top. This is one that doesn't get a whole lot of love, but I really enjoyed it, and that was Ellie Richmond's Andromache. Now, this is like a futuristic dystopian Esther retelling. I enjoyed that one. Protector and Proclaimer by Megan Schaulis. This is the first two books in the Susa Chronicles. I can't get my hands to show both of them, so we'll show the second one. That is an Esther retelling, also futuristic, set in like a Middle Eastern area, Persia setting, but also tech related. Okay. Book 3 in that series is a Nehemiah retelling. Okay, but same kind of world. Okay. All right. So the next two books are also Esther retelling. Well, so the next, let me get these out. So the next series, the first book is an Esther retelling, kind of mixed with a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but also has spiritual warfare in it, and that is The Scarlet Star by Jennifer Croft. This was a really cool version of Esther. I really like that. But then book 2 still has some Esther vibes, a little bit. Still has some spiritual warfare vibes, but add in David vibes. So that was pretty cool about that one. I just really finished that story just recently. Okay. Really, really like that series. I wish more people would get invested in that series. All right. Another Esther retelling that wasn't my favorite. I didn't hate it, but it's not my favorite because it's darker than I liked. But it's by Erin Phillips, and it's called Crown of Chains. Some people might like it more than I did, but it's definitely one you should at least look into. And that is, like I said, it might be right up your alley. And that is Crown of Chains by Erin Phillips. Okay. Also by Erin Phillips is Bond of Briars, which is a Ruth retelling. Now, I liked it better than I liked Crown of Chains, but it's also a bit dark. And that brings me to one of my other favorite series, which is dystopian, and that is The Chaos Grid by Lyndsey Lewellen. Now, this is a biblical retelling that I thought was unexpected. I didn't go into this book realizing that it was a biblical retelling. And it took me, I remember that moment when the light bulb came on in this story, and I thought, wait, this was an Old Testament story being retold. Now, to me, I don't like to tell which Bible story this is being retold. It's part of the fun to me of this story is for you to guess which story is being retold in that one. So book 2 in that story is the Crier Stone. Okay, so that is that series. Another series is the Ilyon Chronicles. Now, The Ilyon Chronicles is a unique situation. They are not all books a retelling, but there are definitely parts of these books that are biblical retellings. So it's definitely mixed in there. Another series that is very much a biblical retelling that I've thoroughly enjoyed is Chuck Black's Starlore Legacy. Now, I've only read a few of those books, and I need to finish that series. Just there's so many books, so little time, and that is, I think, whichever book I was on felt like they were wondering. It was in the promise. They were wandering in the wilderness. That was kind of where they were at in the book. So it was like Israel wandering is essentially the story being told. So, why am I telling you about all these books? I'm telling you there's so many good ones out there. So let's talk about this book for just a minute again. I talked a little bit about this earlier. This one wasn't really published as Christian fiction. You know, when I read the back of it, it says the modern day blend of the Count of Monte Cristo and Mission Impossible. Okay, I can see some Count of Monte Cristo and I can see some Mission Impossible. But this is straight up Joseph. Like I said, I remember reading this and the light bulb coming on it, and I thought, oh my goodness, even her name is Josephine. Wow. But it's so well done. It's so well done. And I cannot wait to read book 4 in the series because I'm understanding that book is also, well, I mean, books 2 and 3 were well done as well, but I'm hearing great things about book 4. So I cannot wait to get my hands on book 4 when it actually comes out. So, to end this video, I just want to ask, what are your thoughts about, and I want you to keep it nice and keep it clean. We're not here to argue and fuss and fight. I'm just asking in a nice way, what are your thoughts on biblical fantasy? I mean, biblical fantasy. What are your thoughts on fantastical or sci-fi biblical retellings or allegory? Obviously, I love them. I've encountered a few people though that didn't like them or didn't think that they were right. I have a very close relative who basically told me I was wrong for reading these. I tried to explain to this person that even Jesus told stories. I said, what do you think parables were? I mean, he even used figurative language. Do you really think he wanted us to pull a beam from somebody's eye or to cut off a limb if it offended us? Just saying. He also told us about, used our similes and metaphors, the vine, the branches, those kind of things. That wasn't literal. Okay. I feel like you have to think. Jesus was a creator. God was a creator. He made us to be creators and creatives. I feel like he understands our need to create worlds and be creative. And I feel like fantastical worlds are the way we reach some people. So, again, I ask, what are your thoughts? I would love for you to give your thoughts. Now, again, I ask that you be respectful, and we're not here to be ugly or disrespectful. And I'm not specifically talking about regular Bible retellings or modern Bible retellings, because I have read a few of those recently that I've really enjoyed, or historical Bible retellings, that are set in like a Western retelling or whatever. I'm talking about fantastical or sci-fi retellings. And by fantastical, I could mean magical or non-magical, either way. Just give me your thoughts and your ideas on it. And also, if you know any good ones that I haven't mentioned, please let me know down in the comments. And if you don't have anything to say or don't have a book recommendation, please leave me, I don't know, a Bible or a magical creature in the comment or book. And please like, subscribe, and share this video. You guys have a good evening, and I will say it. Read Brucey out.